Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Brad.
And I'm your host, Sarah.
And this week on the show, we have a very special episode and something a little different than our typical sort of podcasting. We are joined by none other than the New York Times bestselling author, Ali Hazelwood, who just recently wrote The Love Hypothesis, which Sarah and I both read and loved very dearly. And we're just so excited to dive into with Ali.
And you might be saying to yourself, well, Sarah and Brad, this is a Star Wars podcast. And the last time I checked, The Love Hypothesis was a traditionally published romance novel. And boy, you would be correct. Congratulations on your comprehension skills. They are out of this world. But the thing you may not know, or may know if you are a Reylo fan such as ourselves, is that The Love Hypothesis originally started as Reylo fanfiction. So Ali is somebody who comes from fandom and has been embraced by the traditionally published world with The Love Hypothesis. And we are so excited in this conversation to talk all things fandom and fiction. So we hope that whether or not you've read the book yet, or whether or not you've enjoyed Reylo in the past in the films, that you find something to love in this interview, because we had a delightful time talking with Ali.
Yes, absolutely. So I think not much more can be said, Sarah. So without further ado, let's turn it over to our interview with Ali Hazelwood.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
All right, everyone. We are so thrilled, beyond thrilled, to have Ali Hazelwood on the pod. You may know her as a fanfic writer in the Reylo community, but you probably now know her as the New York Times bestselling author of The Love Hypothesis. Ali, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Well, thank you for being here. And I feel like I have to start with that awesome news. As of recording, The Love Hypothesis has been on the New York Times bestseller list for 11 weeks. What has it been like to have this debut that is a runaway success? I mean, I'm thrilled.
Amazing. It was truly amazing. I think when it was at week 7 or 8 on the New York Times bestselling author, I told my team, so a little bit of behind the scene is that the New York Times bestseller list comes out every Wednesday afternoon. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea how or why, but my team at Berkeley, which is my publisher, gets it before I get it. And they email me if I've made the list. And what happened is that a few weeks ago, I was like, wouldn't it be amazing if we made it 10 weeks on the list and on this group email? And then we made it 11 weeks. And that's amazing. Yes. And now it's okay. People can stop buying the book because we've made it to 10. That was what I really wanted. But yeah, okay, it's been amazing.
Slow it down. Your book purchases.
Stop
buy
buying
something
that
else. In addition to doing this podcast, I'm also a bookseller. So when I see somebody picking up the book, I'm like, you're in for a good time. I love this book. My coworker and I, we've been friends for a long time, and recently saw House of Gucci and combined both of our interests of Lady Gaga and Reylo. So it was great. But we both have recommendations for it on our, shelves. And we have been trying to get every single person in the bookstore to read it. We're on a quest. And we've been doing pretty well so far. We've gotten people who have not read a romance in a hot minute to read a romance. So, it's working for the people. The people are loving it.
I'm so glad. It's very hard to get people who are romance averse to read romance novels. It feels like something that someone I was on a panel with once said was, she was like, I feel like people who don't read romance think that if you read one romance once in your life, then you kind of join a cult and you're stuck there. It is kind of hard to get people who are not into romance novels to read romance. So honestly, you're doing the Lord's work. Thank you.
And we are having them join the cult. It is real. So for that panelist and all the hesitant romance readers, they should be worried, because I read one romance last year and fell in, and I've read 60 cents. But how can you say no to a guaranteed happy ending, and you don't have to stress about your characters very much?
Yeah, I think people, there was this weird Penguin Random House campaign, and I think someone was saying that I think romance is up by 40% or something. Mm-hmm. I do think that with the outside world being what it is, people are more and more trying to look for things that are guaranteed happy ending, like you said. So that totally makes sense to me, that people are just looking for something that is, relaxing and fun, mm-hmm. as opposed to angsty and that will tear you apart.
And those books are excellent too, but
totally, 100%, they're fantastic. But I understand why right now people are let's take it easy.
Yeah, I was somebody that didn't actively pursue romance stories, but I loved romance in my stories. So as a Star Wars fan, I'm I love Amidala, I love Han and Leia, I love Rey and Kylo. It's great, all of it's great. Give it to me. I love kissing and hugging in Star Wars. It's fun. And then we get to, like you said, the pandemic years, and I'm watching Bridgerton all of a sudden. I'm I never thought I'd be the type of person to watch Bridgerton. What is going on in my life that I've gotten to this point? But I think to your point, people want something that is just good and fun and a little uplifting. And I think same thing with your book is it just seemed there was just such a massive wave of support online. There's fan pages about it. People are making fan art of Adam and Olive, which is so fun to see. And so it's just, there's this big romance wave happening, and that is just lovely.
Absolutely. No, I'm so grateful for all the people who were in fandom with me and kind of stuck around and supported me. They did not have to support me. They could have just, most of them had already read the fan fiction and they didn't have to buy the book. Some of them bought 4 copies of the book and then did giveaways, or people are talking about the book to their friends. People are, they're pulling out art that they've done in the past. They're making new art. It's just, I am just overwhelmed. And but no, overwhelmed is kind of I feel overwhelmed has a negative connotation. I am just kind of verklempt because everyone is so lovely, and I am very happy.
Let's rewind here a little bit, because we've mentioned the Reylo fan community in Star Wars, and so I just want to know a little bit about your background in the Star Wars fandom. What brought you to Star Wars? What are your favorite things about Star Wars?
Yeah. So I was I'm not a long time Star Wars fan at all. I actually was, and I know it's a false dichotomy, but I was more of a Star Trek person. I grew up loving Star Trek, and I as a childhood, Spock was my hero, which
yes, and yes.
Yeah. I just loved him so much. And then I didn't really know that online fandom was a thing. Part of it is also that I grew up in Italy and I didn't grow up speaking English. I learned English when I was in my teens. And that's part of the reason why I think I didn't really have a lot of access to online fandom. I didn't even know that it was a thing, honestly. Up until I was in my late 20s, I think I kind of stopped. I was always the type of person who kind of gets super obsessed with fictional characters and then makes stories about them in their head. But you know what I'm saying.
We've all definitely been there.
I was the type of person who gets very hyper fixated. But I had ships in my head, but I didn't even know that they were called ships. And I didn't fully grasp how incredible online fandom could be, or what really fan fiction was, until I got back into it with the Star Trek reboots. When I was, I think, and not even again, I was at the time I was doing my PhD. So I was just really busy with school. And I want to say my fandom was grad school. I actually thought I was happy spending my weekends in the lab, which I wasn't, but I thought I was, or I lied to myself very well at the time. And that was I think my late 20s, my mid to late 20s. I was just like work. And then I remember we went to the movies to watch the third of the, like Star Trek Beyond, the third of the Star Trek reboots. I hadn't even seen the first two, even though I had been a Star Trek fan. I kind of had like dropped off of anything that was good and fun in life. And so I hadn't even seen those movies. Oh, no. It was sad. But then I watched that movie and I just like fell in love. I remembered how much I loved, Spock and everyone else and the crew and the dynamics. And that's when I discovered Fandom. But just to give you an idea, I think that was, oh yeah. So I think I watched the movie in 2016 and The Force Awakens had come out in 2015, right? I hadn't watched it at the movies, but I also did not care to watch it. Like I remember my husband, who at the time he was my boyfriend, he was like, I'm going to go watch The Force Awakens when I go. And I was like, no, find someone else to go with because I don't care. I had seen the original trilogy, years before at some point, I'm sure, because I know I had seen it. I don't even have memories of seeing it for the first time. And I was never like a big fan. It's a lot of people say that Star Trek is sci-fi and Star Wars is fantasy. I don't really know if that's true. I feel like I don't fully understand genre conventions very well, but I remember people telling, like, I remember growing up feeling that I loved Star Trek, but I was very uninterested and very unimpressed with Star Wars, which I'm sorry. I feel bad.
No, we both love Star
fine.
Trek too. You're in good company.
And everybody's fandom journey is valid.
And
we are not here to be like, you didn't see, the first movie in the theaters before you were born, because like we're prequel people because we're in our 20s,
Right.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember the prequels coming out when I was like, I don't know, like in my maybe early teens or something. And I remember like not watching them and not being interested in them at all. Like I didn't care about them. Yeah. And I remember being interested in the prequels for the first time when someone told me that there was this like super cool love story, like doomed love story. And I really like Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen. Is that his name? Yes. Mm-hmm. And I remember liking them a lot and I wanted to like watch it for the first time. And then I watched the prequels, but I just thought they weren't very good. And, so like the love story didn't grab me as much as it could have. So that was like the end of it too. When The Force Awakens came out, I didn't care about Star Wars and I didn't even want to watch the movie. And I didn't watch it for a long time. I think it was on Netflix at some point in 2017 before The Last Jedi came out. And I remember seeing it with my husband just because it was more like what I want to watch tonight. Or there's this movie. My husband had watched The Force Awakens. He had liked it, but he had like that typical opinion of it seems like the same, kind of like the same thing as A New Hope, but just like slightly different. My husband grew up reading Star Wars stuff, and he read all the books, and then like they weren't canonical anymore or something, and he got so mad. Yeah. So that's like
I know someone who experienced the same thing. He bought like every single one. Yeah, and he was grumpy about it for a while.
I know. He was like, oh, "What?" Like he was really mad about it. I was like, "Dude." Whatever. And so he thought that The Force Awakens was objectively good, but like I think he was just mad and bitter about his precious canon.
My books, not the books.
The sacred texts. And so I didn't see this movie for a long time, The Force Awakens for a long time. And then I saw it, like I said, on Netflix, and I remember watching like the interrogation scene and being like, hang on, this is good. I am into this. And I actually read a couple of I was like, I wonder if anyone ships Kylo and Rey. And I remember looking it up. I didn't even know the name. I remember finding a bunch of Reylo fan fictions and reading them and being interested. But at the time I was very deep in the Star Trek fandom, and I was still writing Star Trek fan fiction. That was my hyperfixation for Star Trek was so strong that there was no room in my heart for it. So I read a couple of fics and then that was it. I remember one fic was and I remember most of the fics that I read were AUs, so alternate universe, not even set in that universe. And that was it. I didn't think about Star Wars again until The Last Jedi came out. And that's when I was on Tumblr. So just also to give you some background, I was in I don't know if it was the Star Trek fandom at that time, but I could feel there was a lot of hatred for the ship that I was interested in, for Reylo. A lot of people hated Reylo so much. And I could see it on Tumblr in posts. And it was kind of I was very new to fandom. So it was my first experience with anti-behaviors. I didn't know that people would get mad about fictional characters. It was very new to me, but it was also not really my ship at that time. So I kind of was oh, whatever. I didn't really care that much about it. And, but then I watched The Last Jedi came around, and everyone, all my friends were complaining about how bad it was, how horrible it was.
No.
All my fandom friends, everyone was like, this is just such a bad movie. I can't believe what they did with Kylo and Rey. It just doesn't make sense. And everyone just hated it so deeply. And I remember finding I remember the first Reylo fan art I saw of the throne room. It was something that Hot Side, I think is her name, made. She's a famous artist. And I remember seeing it on Tumblr. I'm and it was, and then I found out that it was something that was actually in the movie. And this was a couple of days after the movie had come out. And I remember turning around, looking at my husband and telling him, tomorrow we're going to go watch The Last Jedi. And my husband was like, it's going to be so crowded. Let's just wait a couple of weeks. And I'm like, no, we're going to go see The Last Jedi. It's
You're like,
happening.
Listen, I've been a Star Wars fan my whole life. We are going tomorrow.
Well, you're asking me to put up something that I wouldn't for my entire life. I never would have thought that they would have taken it, the Reylo direction as much as they did. So thank you, Rian Johnson, for being who you are. I love you. I owe you my life. I really do owe you my life. But anyway, so that's when that's kind of the moment that I became a Star Wars fan, I think. And it was mostly through Reylo. Then I watched The Last Jedi. I fell in love with the ship. I was like, this dynamic here is what I want. And then I started rewatching the old movies. I started rewatching the prequels because I wanted to understand better. I started, writing fan fiction. I didn't read the books or anything, but I started kind of watching other material. I later watched The Mandalorian, which I loved so much, actually. So that was really my gateway to the Star Wars fandom.
Yeah.
So that's it. That was very long, but mostly just to say I wasn't a Star Wars fan. I was a Reylo fan who became a Star Wars fan.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's some of the most beautiful things about the sequel trilogy is it created an avenue for so many new fans, as people who are very kind of tapped into what's happening in the Reylo community. It's so great to see so many people have that same experience of I liked these two characters together, and therefore I now like all of these other things within Star Wars that I didn't think I originally had an interest in. Mm-hmm. And that's, we shouldn't gatekeep these sorts of stories because these stories only ever grow if we allow more people in and allow more people to get tapped into them. So the sequels have been just great for a new generation of fans.
I think the Reylo community is just so amazing because it is full, chock full of wildly talented and creative people who are doing all sorts of things. It doesn't just have to be writing fan fiction. It doesn't have to be, creating art. We have people in the Reylo community that are making jewelry or, making other products, or just like have really smart and intelligent things to say about the ship, writing meta, or just existing. Like you don't even have to like put something into the world in an official way, but it's full of amazing people. And I would love to know like what your experience was like when you initially, hit publish on the fic and was writing fic regularly. What your reaction to the original fic was, and where the inspiration for this story that, became the Love Hypothesis came from.
Yeah, totally. So part of it is like, for me, the fandom was just like, this is going to sound really sad, but I didn't really have friends before fandom. I mean, I did have like work friends and like other, PhD students at first. And then like I hung out with other postdocs. And then like somewhere after I joined the Reylo fandom, I also like became really, really close to two other people who were on my job, like two other postdocs. But really, I think something that happened to me was that like after college, I sort of forgot that I could have friends that shared my interests. Just I kind of got like into grad school mode, and it was just about working and about like truly my hobby was working out. That's how cool my life was, and that's how cool a person I was and am really. And then I remember like just with the Reylo fandom, I just found a community, and I made like my closest friends right now, like the people that I talk to every day. My best friend, who's, kids I love more than anyone else in my life. All these people I met through fandom. So that was just like the community, like it became my community. And even after I stopped being obsessed with fandom and with Reylo, like it kind of, like everything, it kind of dies down a little bit after a certain point. Like there is that part of like that, and it lasted a long time for me with Reylo, like for a year or so. I could think about nothing but Reylo. Like it was just like every single thing. Every single moment was, I was just like thinking, what will the next movie will be like? Let's read some fan fiction. I was obsessed, but even when it died down, like the community kind of stayed for me. And that's what kept me into Reylo. And that's kind of when I started writing more and more like alternate universe stuff. And that's kind of what I was doing, where I was at when I wrote the fan fiction that then became the Love Hypothesis. And it was me. It was like I wrote it within a kind of like a fan fiction exchange. There was this, or maybe still there, this really big server for fan fiction writers within the Reylo fandom. And someone was like, I would like to read a fake dating story. And I was like, I had just seen To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and I loved it. I love that movie so much. And I was like, you know what? I'll write you a Reylo fake dating at you. I wanted to write it for a long time, or like for a few weeks. So I was like, I'll do it. And that's kind of how it went. And everyone was super supportive. I was never, the most popular fan fiction writer or anything, but like people were really supportive anyway. And that's the thing of the Reylo fandom. There was always like so much love going around and so much support. And and it was amazing. So I think the reaction was really great from the very beginning. And, my friends were there and like they were beta reading what I wrote. So yeah, it was a really pleasant journey.
So then, I mean, obviously it is a book that we own in our hands now. What was your process of either, deciding to write this as original commercial fiction, and also the process of, revising and adapting it into something that is, in some ways very similar, but in also some ways brand new?
Mm-hmm. So I started kind of thinking about maybe trying to write something original in 2019. So that was like, we were about 6 months out of TROS, The Rise of Skywalker. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna it was kind of like a lull. There was not a whole lot of new material coming out. Like there had been Celebration, and we had like the trailer for the movie, but then kind of like stuff stopped for a while, and then it picked back up in I think September or something. But like there were a few months where there wasn't a whole lot, and I think I was feeling like, oh, it would be good to just kind of like try to write something original. And at the time, Avon had like an open submission thing. Usually to submit to publishers, you have to have an agent. But at the time, that specific Avon thing did not require an agent. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to take my fan fiction and adapt it. And that's what I did. And my first pass was really mostly changing the names. I changed a bunch of the things that I never really loved in the fic. But the thing of the fic is that you write chapter by chapter and you can't really change things, even when you realize that they don't work. But I got to do it when I revised it and shortened it, and like there were some parts that were redundant. So that was the first part of the process. And then I submitted the fic, and of course I didn't get picked up. I think what happened was that I didn't really think much about it. It's not like it was like my dream at that time. I was way more oriented towards, trust and what was going to happen with Reylo. I was happy to be in Fandom again by the time I got the rejection. So I didn't really care too much. I remember The Rise of Skywalker came out, and there were a lot of new Reylos seeking fan fiction, being really, really into fan fiction. And I remember I actually went to watch The Rise of Skywalker with other Reylos. We rented a theater in North Carolina. There was like 60 of us. It was amazing. Again, you were talking about like how cool the Reylo community is. And like we did all this stuff. Like we made Reylo cupcakes. We made like Reylo goodie bags. So we were doing like, it was so much fun, guys. I got my husband to like use this 3D printer at his job to make like Reylo cookie cutters. It was so cool, guys.
Whoa, it's awesome.
We loved it.
Oh yeah. So, I did something on a very similar smaller scale, but in Chicago, there were about 10 or 12 of us that went.
Amazing.
So, yes, the good energy.
It's funny. Like it's good. And it makes you feel like you're lucky. You have friends, people that you can enjoy stuff with. And, the Rise of Skywalker turned out to be not what we wanted, but we still like, I actually, there are parts of The Rise of Skywalker that I really, really, really enjoy. And I'm just still happy that I had the experience of doing all of that stuff with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends brought her dogs, and I got to cuddle with her dogs, and that was amazing. That's the stuff that really matters.
Now that's the theatrical experience right there. The dogs, bring the pets.
Yes. So at that time, there was a big influx of Reylo fans in Fandom, and everyone was like DMing me, asking me. They were like, "Oh, your fic is that." By that time, I had pulled the fan fiction from AO3 because of the submission that I had done. So it was pulled, and everyone was like, "So where could we find your fan fiction?" Everyone keeps recommending that specific fan fiction. You pulled it to publish it. Are you going to publish it? Where is it? And I was like, you know what? No, I didn't publish it, but I just like re-uploaded it because I couldn't keep up with the DMs and I couldn't send everyone the PDF. And I was gone for the weekend to watch this movie, and I was having fun with my friends. So I was like, you know what, whatever. And I just re-uploaded it. And that was how my agent found me. It was really like kind of serendipitous. She read my fan fiction, and then she read a bunch of my other fics. And I had written at the end of what was the fan fiction that became The Love Hypothesis, I had written, guys, I'm thinking of publishing this, so I might pull it anytime. So please make sure that you download it if you want to read it. I had written it like in 4 different places. So my agent knew that I was kind of interested in publishing. And so that's how she, that's kind of how she reached out. And that's when I started really working hard in terms of like reworking it and readapting it so that it would make sense as an original story. yeah. So, and when I finally had my agent, she guided me through the process. And like, she was like, your book needs a plot, and the fan fiction didn't really have a plot. It was just like a bunch of chapters of them fake dating. So, or, you have to change this. You have to have, you have to give them a purpose. You have to have something that drives the story. And that's when like, I started getting, professional advice, like people telling me, you might want to read the Save the Cat Writes a Book. So you know what a bitch shit is. And stuff like that. It was a bunch of help that I got from industry professionals that I personally, I'm not saying that every fanfiction writer needs it, because there are a lot of fanfiction writers that are way more sophisticated than I'll ever be. But I personally needed that kind of help. And I got it through my agent.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like this is sort of like a larger trend that's happening in the publishing industry, of publishers embracing fan fiction and sort of trying to craft that into something more? And I feel like, especially as fan fiction gets more visibility, I think of somebody like Chloe Zhao after she won the Oscar for Nomadland. Like, she even was starting to talk about how she started in fan fiction, and she's like, I won't reveal like what my name was or anything, so I don't want anybody to go back and read it. But
I love the Reylo fandom trying to guess who she was, and everyone guessing that she was this specific fanfiction author whom I've loved forever. So I'm like, I want it to be true.
Yeah, and she's been excited too to see like, I want to see what other Eternals fan fiction is out there. Like she's still into it even to this day. But like, do you think this is sort of like part of a larger trend, and what do you think that means for like fan fiction?
I definitely think that publishing is, I know that publishing is recruiting other fanfiction authors. I think, I think there are several things. So part of it is that fanfiction authors, especially when they are very popular, have an inbuilt audience. And I know like there is a lot of discussion in publishing about how having, like 1 million followers doesn't necessarily mean selling 1 million books, that it's not like a one-to-one relationship, that there are a bunch of things to consider. But in the case of fanfiction, like fanfiction authors get followings because of their writing. So you can expect that if they have a platform, like if Diasterisms, who wrote Landscapes with the Blood of Conqueror, like if she publishes a book, which I really, really hope is going to happen soon, you can expect that every single person who read, or that many people who follow her are going to buy that book, because the reason they follow her in the first place is that they love their writing. So I think generally publishing is kind of becoming aware of the potential that fic writers have for them. There is also the fact that, so it's complicated, but there haven't been very many fandoms that are as big as Reylo, I think. Or maybe there have been, but it seems to me like Reylo is pretty huge. So like it seems to me like what happened is a few years ago there was Twilight, and a lot of fanfiction writers started in Twilight and then like kind of became famous. And before that there was Harry Potter. And it seems to me like there have been a bunch of other writers from other fandom, but now publishing is truly trying to recruit Reylo, because they have seen that the things that Reylo writers like to write about are things that, people who buy romance novels are interested in reading and then buying. Like there are so many alternate universe fan fictions. So that's something that is, very easy to adapt. Definitely it's enemies to lovers, Reylo, but I think there's a little more than that. There is like the pining, the idea of like soulmates, the idea that there are these two really competent, really smart, really powerful people who are very alone and very isolated for different reasons, and who can kind of only understand each other, and no one else really can understand them. And that is something, you guys probably remember the trailer of The Rise of Skywalker, when they were like, she was saying, I don't remember what she was saying. It was something like,
she's like, yeah, no one knows me. No one knows who I am. Yeah.
And he said, but I do. And the part wasn't in the movie, right? But the reason they put it in the trailer is that they know exactly what kind of tropes people want to see, because that was total like bait. And, you know, I was very mad. I was so disappointed when I found out. But like, on the other hand, it's kind of nice to know that they know exactly what people want. And this is something that I feel like a lot of Reylo fanfiction writers have harnessed, like this idea of like a love for the ages, that it's just like this meant to be feeling. So yeah, I definitely think that publishing is trying to reach out to fanfiction writers. I know I have a bunch of friends who have been contacted by publishers recently in the last, like, I don't know, 6 months, 1 year. Publishing is very slow. So you probably won't hear about it for a while, or maybe you'll start hearing about it right now. But definitely, I think fanfiction and publishing are like merging a little bit, and that publishing is noticing more and more how much fanfiction writers can, you know, be an asset to them, which, you know, is nice.
The pace of publishing sometimes like absolutely kills me. And I understand that it takes time to write a book. Like, it does. It really does. But you're like, okay, I got this announcement from Publishers Weekly and it's coming out summer 2023. Oh,
yeah.
Like, I will just wait.
very
patiently.
It's so weird. Like my deadline for my third book, which is coming out in summer 2023, is January 2022. So like it's not even like just the writing of the book, then it's everything that happens later. There's like copy edits and developmental edits and like, you know, past pages, and then they have to make a cover, and then they have to write the blurbs. It's a whole thing.
Then they have to print it at the very end of that all, which is a whole other thing right now too.
Yeah, apparently it's super hard right now to print books. I don't fully understand the supply chain, but I am told it's a nightmare. So yeah, so many things.
So many things.
You mentioned covers. I gotta shout out your cover was so good. It's just so great, and it's great to have like a Reylo artist involved with the book doing the cover.
I know my agent. So she's a total nerd, and I love her. And my agent actually not bullied. Like, she lobbied. My agent bullied my editor. No, my agent lobbied for it. She was like, "Wouldn't it be amazing if we could have a fan artist to do the cover?" And she was like, "Lilith is amazing." And there were like a bunch of other people that she was like, "This person is amazing too. This person is amazing too. This person is amazing." Like, we were like giving them options. We were like, please, could it be a fan artist? And I actually recently talked with my editor, and I there are a bunch of like, all this stuff happens behind the scenes. Like I rarely talk with anyone at Penguin Random Mouse who isn't my editor or my marketing or publicity team. And my editor told me that usually like the art department at Penguin Random Mouse is not like super into working with non-established artists, as in they usually want to work with professional artists that have worked with before. And just knowing that like they made an exception for us because they understood how important it was for us, that like to keep these ties with fandom and to like bring in, you know, Lilith was just amazing from the very start. And I really wanted to do this with her. And it was amazing that they said yes. I'm just really, really grateful. And then she got to do the covers of my other novellas. And she did the cover for my second book that we haven't revealed yet. But I'm so happy.
I am so thrilled, because what's so amazing, I think, about, you know, the Love Hypothesis success is that, you know, it is a bit of proof of concept. Like, hey, like Reylo is here. We're here to buy books. And, you know, like, so this is a really tight knit community, even though it is vast. You know, I actually like haven't finished Landscape with a Blur of Conquerors, but like I'm ready to buy that book whenever it gets published. I'm like, I'll be first in line, you know?
I will buy 7 copies and I'll give them to all my friends. Like, I am ready for it.
Yes. But what's so amazing is like, everybody is brought along on that journey. Like you had the opportunity to bring Lilith on that journey, and now other people are getting the opportunity as they are also, you know, getting agents and getting deals. And I think that's so cool. And like everybody's on like the Reylo, you know, traditional publishing train here. And I think we are like having a blast, you know, pumping the House of Gucci all the way down the train. but yeah, no, I love this cover. And I think what's so great about the cover as well is like the illustrated trend is really big in the romance genre right now, but this one looks just a little bit different. It stands out.
Oh yeah.
And as my friend says, like they have faces.
I know it's less
abstract.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. And Lilith is just, I don't know. To me, like I feel like I could recognize anything done by Lilith. Like she's just such a beautiful artist with her own like she has a trademarks. So yeah, no, I totally agree. I love the way she does stuff, and I just cannot believe that she knows who I am still.
I love it. So you mentioned the upcoming novellas. They are Under One Roof, Stuck With You, and Below Zero, and we're getting those spring of 2022. Is that the right timeline for things?
Yes, I think I think you get the audiobooks, like they come out first in audio, all three of them. So the first audiobook comes out February, then March, then April, and then they start coming out in ebook in May, June, and July, and then in August my second book comes out.
Yay!
Yeah, it feels like a lot of stuff.
It's like, but we're all staying fed here, and I think that's all good. You know,
like thing.
What can you tease or tell us about any of these upcoming projects that doesn't get corporate? I'm mad at you.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I always mean to ask my editor, what can I say? What can't I say? And then I always forget, and I just like say too much. But I mean, I definitely like the three novellas used to be fan fictions, and my official stance is that like, you know, I had to pull the fan fictions when we sold them to Berkeley, but I know that there are like PDFs floating around, and you know, I can't help it if people are sharing the PDFs if you must. So, you know, if anyone wants to read them, I'm sure they can find them somewhere on the internet. And the Wayback Machine is always a thing. That's what I always tell people.
So in case you're wondering the plot details, the internet might have some resources. Otherwise, you'll have to wait.
Just shout out a tweet. Don't at me. So I'm not part of that. I'm not part of this corporate fraud, but just shout out a tweet, and someone in the Reylo fandom is going to come to your rescue. Don't worry.
Yes. And for corporate, if you're listening to this, that is someone who is not Ali who gave us that response.
I don't know who it was. Some other random Italian person with an Italian accent just like came in.
She just like popped into the room and had that to say. It was very odd, but like, okay, we'll take it. We'll take
exactly. To be fair, the novellas are much different from the fan fictions. Like the first one was like the fan fictions were about like, I don't know, 15,000 words, the first one, and then like 8,000 or 6,000 and then 8,000 words. So like relatively short. And then we had to pull them up to 30,000 words. So there's more in the novellas than there was in the fan fictions, but like the plots and the basic concepts have kind of stayed the same, you know? And it was just fun to kind of like change the backgrounds a little bit and like kind of like make people interested. I had a lot of fun writing those novellas, honestly. Yeah, so that was like fun, and I'm excited for people to read them, and like I'm excited for people. It was also like really cool because all three, I wrote a lot of stuff as gifts to other people. Like there was a year where every single one of my Fandom friends who had a birthday got a fan fiction from me as a present.
What? That's so awesome.
It's kind of cheap if you think about it.
No. No. We're gonna reframe that here. You spent your time and your care to write them something that would be, you know, emotionally satisfying and be something that they're specifically interested in, that is an incredibly caring gift. So
it's
it may have not cost you any dollars, but it meant the world.
I'm like, Sarah, here's a $9 Rose Tico Funko Pop for your birthday. She didn't get any fan fiction last year.
Oh my God, I want a Rose Tico Funko Pop though. It's the best present ever.
Here's the fun thing about this. I have not purchased any Funko Pops with the exception of one. I don't buy them. Other people gift them to me. So I have 2 different Rose Tico Funko Pops, and that's only because other people gifted them to me because they know how much I love her.
She's amazing.
I love her. I would do anything for her.
I know, she's amazing. I actually recently read this is amazing. I recently read 2 books that are not going to be out for a while, but I'm still going to tell you about them. They are The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston and Go Hex Yourself by Jessica Clare. And they were in Reylo fanfictions, but they kind of started as Reylo fanfiction maybe. And then I think, I just think the authors were a lot into Reylo, and but they were also like, authors writing stuff, and they had like writing deadlines. So I think there was like a mix of what they would have written if they had written a fanfiction. And they're both very Reylo stories. They are both amazing. I love them so much. And in both stories, the characters that I loved the most were Rose. And in both, I think only in one story she's actually called Rose. And in another one, her name is different, but like you can tell that it's Rose because she's so amazing and lovable and fantastic. And like Rose is just the best. And I love the care and love that Rose is getting from the fandom.
Oh yeah. And Kelly Marie Tran has had a year, between, Raya and just, I think she's been on a couple different things. She was part of the One Music, where she sang, I forget.
Okay. MCC Miscast. And then also she executive produced Summertime, I believe is the movie.
So she's making a comeback. She's busy. I love that for her.
She's fantastic. I want only the best for her. And I want her also to be my best friend. So I hope she can deliver.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. So Kelly, if you're out there. Okay, this is a super, super, super side question because you mentioned The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Have you read her Once Upon a Con series?
I have not because I'm going to be honest, I didn't know it was a thing, but I finished her book like 2 days ago and I'm going to read everything this woman has written. It's so good. Like that book is so amazing. I was just like, that's it. Like my life is now her writing. I want to read anything she has written. She's fantastic.
Yeah, so the first one in the Once Upon a Con series is Geekerella, and it's got like a Star Trek-ish fandom convention at the center of it. So I just think you would really like it.
I would.
Actually, I will say that like my copy of The Love Hypothesis sits right next to Geekerella on my shelves intentionally. So
my heart.
You're gonna love it.
I love this so much. Oh my God. That is fantastic. It's fantastic news, honestly.
So something that I think we have really connected to throughout our discussion is the impact and like influence of fan fiction, because you jokingly said like, Rian Johnson, you changed my life, but you're also like kind of serious about it because it led
he did. Like I owe him. I mean, I don't plan to have kids, but if I did, I would owe him my firstborn. So,
but like, that I think that's incredible, right? But the way that Star Wars has shaped your life, and then in turn how the fan fiction that you wrote has shaped your life and the lives of other people, and how fan fiction in general just shapes our lives and how it connects one another. And it connected you to Lilith, who did your cover, and the Reylo community is so bound together by fiction. And even after the Rise of Skywalker, it felt like you said, even though we didn't get the ending that we wanted, it felt like for so long I had never seen so much like fiction and fan art in my life than I did after that film. And it's because people were just channeling all that energy positively, really trying to just create something special. So I want to ask you, like, what do you just see kind of overall as like the power of just like fandom communities and like fan fiction, especially within those communities? Because I think often it's overlooked, but there's a lot of great stuff that you can find within that niche.
Totally. I mean, I think what I said before still stands. Like, I really did, like, I found my friends, like I found myself. One of the things that I think is just great. And I mean, I know that the real fandom is not just women, but as you know, Brad's existence proves. And I mean, there are several men, there are several men in fandom who, you know, enjoy fanfiction and write fanfiction. And but like, let's be real, it is a predominantly female space, and it's a very safe space where I personally was able to meet a lot of people who are like-minded and who are incredibly unjudgmental when it comes to, you know, things that like adult women enjoy or do not enjoy. And I mean, I'm not saying there have been like conversations in fandom about, you know, like how adult women shouldn't be in fandom and things like that. But, you know, for the most part, like the biggest part of fandom is just like a safe space where, like I was saying earlier, I got to make friends, and then we would like exchange fan fiction based on our kinks for our birthdays. Like, I'm like, is this a thing adult women do? Like, is this what having friends who really love you and understand you is? It was just such an incredibly new experience for me. And like it's just it's incredibly powerful. Like, just the constant feeling of being accepted for despite or because of a bunch of things that are, you know, usually ridiculed in normal life. Like, being a fangirl is not something that I ever thought I'd be open about. The fact that I get hyper fixated on things is not something that I ever thought I would, you know, be open about or tell people, because I kind of just felt like it was something I should be ashamed of. The message that I got growing up and the message that I got like from my ward was that only losers care so much that they spend hours and hours thinking about fictional characters. It's something that I thought I was supposed to hide. And I remember finding, it's not just finding that there is fan fiction on the internet, but also finding fan fiction on the internet that is incredibly good, that is actual art. Like, I remember the first really, really, really good Star Trek fan fiction that I read, that I was like, there are people in the world who are like me. They are spending so much time polishing stuff about characters that don't really exist, polishing stuff that is not going to make them any money, just because they love a franchise, a character, just because they love a concept. That was something that was just incredibly empowering and validating to me. Like, I was like, okay, so maybe I'm not like the weirdest person in the world because I think about fictional characters in my head while I fall asleep. Maybe it's normal. Maybe there's others. And that is just, it's been life-changing for me. I really do think that in the past now 5 years that I have discovered fandom and then that I started writing fan fiction, I like just everything changed because of that. And in particular for me, so like I said before, I was, you know, I'm a woman in STEM and I was in academia, and it was very hard for me just to like have any, like my entire worth came through my STEM output and how good I was at academia. And it was just, I was obsessed with that. Like, I remember I went to this like neuroscience symposium thing and I met a bunch of people and I was like super happy to meet them. And then like the first thing that I did was like looking up how many publications they had. I was like, I wonder if they think, like, I just was afraid that they would think that I was stupid if I had fewer publications than them. That's where my mind was at in terms of work. And I just think that part of it is because I didn't really have anything else aside from like fandom, aside from academia. And then with fandom, I kind of realized that I was more than my job. Like, I was a person with interest. Like I had friends that I could, send Adam Driver gifts to. Like it was kind of like discovering that all these things that I had been as a teenager and then maybe a little bit in college, I could still be. Like I could be like a well-rounded person. Being an adult and being in grad school didn't mean that I just had to be a professional human being. I could be just a human being, and it was amazing. Like it just meant so much to me. And it's kind of sad in a weird way that I had all those years where I was just spending all my time in love. It was so sad, guys. I was in love so much.
The important part, though, is that you eventually found fandom, because I'm always a firm believer of like better late than never, because
100%.
you can like, I'm somebody that didn't know anything about fandom until after Celebration 2019. I didn't even know what the word ship meant. I was like, I like Rey and Kylo, and Sarah's like, are you a Reylo? I'm like, what is that? It means you ship these two characters. I'm like, what does that mean? And like, I didn't know anything, but I mean, it seems like your story. Do you feel like some of your story kind of made it into Olive's story? Because I feel like Olive is somebody who is like, when she meets Adam for the first time, he's like, no, like, why do you want to be in academia? Like, that's the question you should ask yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And it kind of opens up her mind to think like, okay, maybe I can have things outside of this specific role that I think I want for myself. But like, why do I actually want it? And do I want other things as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the arc of all the books that I've written. Like it's the same. It's for Olive, and like, I mean, the second book hasn't come out yet, but like B, the main character, kind of goes through the same thing. She's like, I can be something else. It's not just my professional self. I feel like my third book has something similar. Like they're like twists on that trope, but like the idea that, I mean, I definitely like it definitely. The discovery that you can be more than your academic self is something that me and my friends, my work friends, have been going through in the past few years. I have a friend who left academia to go into industry, and now she's super happy. I have another friend who kind of like had, she moved abroad, and she realized that, it's all bullshit. So that is just to say, I think that's definitely something that I'm probably going to inject in every single story. Just the idea of like finding yourself and trying to figure out, what really makes me happy, and what is it that other people expect of me, and I think I should be doing. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I just, as like a reader and as a person, for me, the pandemic coincided with my college graduation. So talk about like only knowing yourself through your academic success and like through what other people think you're going to do, like the trajectory. And then like immediately was like, no. And so attempting to kind of rebuild myself and figure out what I enjoy, and allowing myself to have hobbies over here, work in the middle, which can, dip into everything, but like, not centering myself around this one thing that eats away at your life a little bit sometimes. Yeah. And so I really appreciate Olive's story. And I am thrilled to hear that you're just going to include variations on this theme in every book, because frankly, I'm going to need to hear it 1,000 more times. And I think that we all need to hear it 1,000 more times, because, I think that our culture broadly is just, work, success, CEO, millions of dollars. And that's the road to being a successful person. And it's all nonsense, as you said. It's like, it's all bullshit, because there are so many different ways to be happy and places to find happiness and things to get so excited about, and, allow yourself to unashamedly do that. And so I think that Olive finding it in this story, and also all of us just kind of finding this in our life journeys, it's important, and it's an important theme to kind of touch on. I'm going to pivot just a little bit, because I don't want to take up your time forever. We could be here all night, just like, gossiping about how much we love Reylo. There's an Easter egg in this book that made me laugh out loud. And it may not be so obvious to like non-Star Wars fans, non-Reylo people, but it's like a big sign in the book. And It may or may not be that moment when Matt, the radar technician, is very clearly referenced at the picnic.
Yeah, that was 100%.
I laughed out loud. I think it was like 1 a.m. when I initially read this, and I like highlighted it on my ebook, and I was like, I can't wait for everybody to read this, because I was reading an ARC copy at that time, and I was just like, oh my god, the Reylos are going to go upside down. Like, can you talk about like keeping these little Easter eggs and moments to the Star Wars roots of the story, or just having fun moments in the story for yourself and for your friends?
It was amazing. Like, and I'm really glad that my editor let me, like, there is a point when someone says like head over feet, which is not really an expression. Like the expression is head over heels. But I remember being like putting it in and my editor flagging it, and I was like, can we keep it? My editor was so on board with it. It's like, yes, let's do it. And it's been the same thing in all everything that I've written. She was like, is this doesn't make sense to me. Is it an Easter egg? And I was like, yes, please leave it. Like it's important. But yeah, I mean, it's just I never want to hide that the Love Hypothesis was a Reylo fan fiction. Like I never ever want to hide it ever. It was written as a fan fiction that updated every couple of weeks or whatever. Well, actually, sometimes every couple of months, but I updated it whenever I managed to write a chapter. And there are parts of it that were kind of like, fan fiction is a conversation sometimes, because you post it to AO3 and then there are the comments, and you do read the comments, like the comments deliver to your inbox. So it's not like I don't read Goodreads review because they're not for me, but the comments on AO3 are for you as an author. So I would read them. And like, I remember when, for example, Adam and Olive were supposed to go to Boston. At the time, the fic was a little bit different, but there was this idea that they might have to share a hotel room. And people were like, oh my God, is there going to be only one bed? And I remember like reading the comments and kind of like answering them in the text by having Olive address the trope. And it was so much fun, like knowing that there were those, but like I was writing with a specific audience in mind, which was a small audience, like a couple hundred people, but it was still like, it was, my friends. And it was just, it was nice to be able to keep them in. Like it was kind of like taking a conversation and keeping it in the text, like kind of like annotating a text in a weird way. Yeah. And it was just so much fun. Anyway, it's really nice that my editor let me do that.
I also love when she acknowledged there was the only one bed trope. That's actually like what my review at the bookstore is. I'm like, okay, flip to this page, read the hypothesis, and tell me you aren't hooked. Come on. I love it when the tropes talk back. Like,
yeah, it's fun.
And I just read Olivia Dade's not spoiler alert, the second one.
Oh, I haven't read that
yet. Oh my
gosh.
You will also love these. But there's an only one bed moment that they are quite literally driving to, and I'm like, we're getting closer. Oh my gosh. You can see it from a mile away. It's the best feeling.
I know. I think there is a reason if tropes are there and so beloved. It's because they're just nice to read, and it's nice to know what's going to happen. I embrace them thoroughly.
It's like a warm hug every time.
Yeah.
We should probably wrap it up, and maybe with a little bit of like a little rapid fire. No pressure on the questions. Just like very low key, no wrong answers. As they say in Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's all made up and the points don't matter.
Let's do this.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to go first, Bad, with a question?
Yes. Okay. So my first question, I'm going to bring it back to Reylo because that's why I'm here. What is your favorite Reylo moment from the entirety of the sequel trilogy?
It's such a hard question because it's definitely the throne room. The "but not to me" speech. It gets me every time.
Yes.
So good.
What is your favorite fan fiction or romance trope?
I'm just gonna say it. ABO.
Oh,
It's true.
Amazing. Brilliant. Love it.
I'm not gonna pretend it's not ABO.
Is there a ship that you didn't think you would like, but you ended up loving outside of Reylo or something in any sort of media?
Spock Kirk. I started not like I started. I joined the Star Trek fandom because I just wanted to read about Spock and Uhura, and then I discovered Spock Kirk, and I was like, "Whoa, I like this."
It's a good ship, I will say, and Spock is just such a brilliant character. He's my favorite.
I know. I mean, Spock. In the end, I ended up writing fanfiction about Spock and every single other character. It was just I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop.
I love it. I love it. Because at the end of the day, we are a Star Wars podcast. Our final question is often, what does Star Wars, and in this case, I will say Star Wars and Reylo, mean to you?
I mean, I feel like I'm kind of repeating what I said before, but like to me, it's just a community that allowed me to discover myself and to find friends and to feel better, like in my shoes, and to feel better about who I am. So that's really what this is to me.
Bring it back to TLJ. Something inside me has always been there, and now it's awake.
Yes. So
right. I mean, that's all fiction is. It's taking the things that are lying dormant and bringing it to the surface and discovering who we are.
Yes.
So that's the power of fiction. So thank you for joining us today on the podcast. It's been such a pleasure to have you here. But for all of our folks who've enjoyed the Love Hypothesis or enjoyed this conversation, where can they find you online to follow more of your stuff?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram at Ali Hazelwood, which is just my first name, my last name. And then on TikTok, I think Ali Hazelwood too. And I am not really on Facebook, but I do have a Ali Hazelwood page. And then I am on Twitter at Ever So Ali.
And you can buy the book wherever books are sold, perhaps at your local indie bookstore, where perhaps your local indie bookseller will also love the book.
I would definitely recommend you buy it at an indie bookseller because they are the best. If you want to buy it. Do
you have a favorite indie bookseller? Here's another rapid fire.
No, but okay, I do want to say that I recently was at a city bookshop in DC. I'm not from DC, but I was there, and I made friends with one of the booksellers, Destiny, and I love her so much. And I think everyone should go to that bookstore because she's amazing and everyone there is amazing.
All right.
Love it.
When we do book reviews, we do an indie bookstore of the week at the top of the review, just to highlight different bookstores around the country. And so this episode's will be East City Books in DC.
Please, yes. Brilliant. They are on I think there are two. They are on like Pennsylvania Avenue or something.
Rad. All right. We will give all the details in the thing.
We're booking flights tomorrow.
Description of because it matters to me. It matters to me. So thank you again, Ali, for being on the podcast tonight. We have just had such a wonderful time getting to chat with you about all things Reylo and the book and our love for Reylo and our love for the book. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, guys.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to our interview with author Ali Hazelwood. It was such a pleasure to have her on the show because, again, Sarah and I loved the Love Hypothesis, and we love TLJ, we love Reylo, and it was just great to learn more about the writing process and talk about all of our favorite aspects of Star Wars and about romance, because romance is fun. Romance is great. I love romance.
What if we made our whole podcast about romance and TLJ and Reylo?
We could call it Lovers of the Force.
Oh, that's the stuff. That's brilliant. And here's the deal. We're going to get more opportunities. Yeah, we can get more opportunities to work it out, to play around with it, because Ali has a bunch more books and novellas coming out in the new year and in years to come. So the first 3 titles that we're getting in spring 2022 are 3 novellas titled Under One Roof, Stuck With You, and Below Zero. And those will be available on ebook and audio formats. In the summer/fall of 2022, we will be getting Love on the Brain, her next full-length novel. And if you've read The Love Hypothesis, you've probably read the excerpt chapter and the end of it. And I'm so excited. I don't know about you, Brad, but I'm very hype. So we'll be able to work to shop that.
Very ready for all of it, honestly. I just can't wait. So if you want to hear more of our thoughts until then, you can find Sarah and I on Twitter, Letterboxd, and Goodreads. And you can also follow Sarah's adventures with reading and books and all the good stuff. Follow her over on Instagram at Sarah's Puzzled Pages. And if you're listening to this episode and you enjoyed it and want to hear future episodes, make sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening. That way our episodes drop right into your podcast feed automatically.
Technology. It's so wild.
It's wild.
It really is. But
Crazy.
Technology also enables our Patreon. We are so grateful to all of our patrons who help us support the show and in return get some extra perks like extra episodes about the High Republic comics and watch-alongs that we do occasionally. And we're so grateful for all of our patrons: Amy, Anna, Brian, Cheryl, Deborah, Donnie, Elegy, Jesse, Jen, Knights of Ren, Huang, Levi, Lindsay, Lucy, Marie Claire, Neil, Rachel, Sarah, Saber Bouquet, Sky Talkers, Travis, and T. Thank you, friends.
Yes, thank you all once again for listening. And until next time, may the Force be with you always.